the art of persistence. So this is like a muscle. It's a skill that could be developed. You know, creating the art of persistence, knowing that, okay, I'm going to push through. I think that, like what you said about contagious, I think is also just within ourself is almost a, not contagious. I guess I used the word snowball effect earlier, but kind of like that, like, or our culture within ourself is we can get used to quitting.
Yeah.
And so if we quit, okay, I've used this example before, but the person that has a natural talent, let's say in music, they are really naturally talented, and we just talked about this not too long ago, so I apologize for repeating, but they will often, they're so talented, and or if they're talented and they don't really practice, okay, there's talented people that do. Adrian is one, but they're talented and they don't practice because they can just get away with it. They can get away with it because they're so talented. Well, they will only reach a certain level and they'll hit a lid because their talent will take them to a certain level and they're not used to working hard at it.
Yeah.
So when they reach that lid, that point, that's as far as they go. Versus the person that maybe is not as talented, but they work so hard.
Yes.
And they're just used to always having to work hard. The heights for them is just, it's limitless, you know?
Yeah.
And so if we can have kind of that mindset and we can build that persistence as a skill, as we just say, this is who I am. I will persist. I will push. And that's what I do every time. Some things are easier, some things are hard, but we just always know that we just push.
Yeah.
And that's what we do.
Yeah. And the more you do it, of course there's going to be difficult days and difficult times, but the more you do it, it does develop that muscle and it starts to get easier.
Yeah.
You start to notice you have a little bit more strength.
Yes.
And it's like, hey, you know what? I can actually take this a little further. Imagine the person that's, exercising or bodybuilding, whatever it is. And, for a long time, they're just consistent at that one. Let's say they're bench pressing or something. They're used to that one way, and they're just consistent at it. All of a sudden, a couple, months down the road, it's like, hey, you know what? That's not as hard as it was when I first was going because I was consistent. Now I can up it up a little bit, and now there's a greater strength that I have. I've developed a greater muscle in this, and that's the same thing with being persistent. Is you just keep working at it, and it will eventually with time get easier to where you can even become greater. And
well, and to stick with that analogy is then you go on to a different exercise, and because you've developed this habit of not only developing that muscle but the mindset of I'm going to push through it and get to where I'm good at this, now the next new exercise is easier. I was just telling somebody the other day, we were talking about the website, our church website. So let me back up. When I started this podcast, I am somewhat of a tech guy. I use computers every day, both Mac and PC, and I do a lot of power user type stuff. So I'm somewhat of a tech guy, but I'm not a coder or anything like that. When I started this podcast, for some reason, I just had major issues trying to get there's a few things that I was trying to get set up, and it was so hard, so difficult, and but I got through it and I got it done. So that's an example, of pushing through, persevering, and finally got it launched, got it off the ground. Well, then I was talking about our website, and I was saying that with some of the things I had to do some coding, and the person I was talking to, they were like, I didn't know you could code. I was like, well, I can't. But I had to figure out how to do something. So I Googled it, and I had to do some coding. And so it was one of those things of like, it's not that I'm smart or super cool or anything. It's just that I was trying to get a task done.
It's good.
And I have learned, like, you got to push through things and figure stuff out, because if you try to give it to somebody else, they're not going to do it, or you're going to pay somebody and they're going to do it, and they're going to do the same thing that I could do.
And you gained experience and knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
Through all that.
And now it's going to be easier that
yes,
next time.
absolutely.